Welcome to Spot Podcast, the voice of scientists, where groundbreaking research meets your ears. We bring you the world's top cited research articles in an engaging podcast format, making cutting edge science accessible anytime, anywhere. Stay informed, stay inspired. This is the Spot Podcast, the voice of scientists.
Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive. Today we're tackling something that I think we all struggle with sometimes. It's the impact of social media on women's body image,
Oh, yeah.
specifically Instagram.
Sure.
We're going to be looking at a recent study, and it asks a really, really interesting question. Does age really matter when it comes to, feeling the pressure of those perfect bodies that we see online?
I think we've all wondered about that at some point, Like, is it just a young person problem or...
Totally. And so this study looked at like almost 700 women
Wow.
from 18 years old all the way up to 60.
Oh, wow. That's a big range.
Huge range, yeah.
Yeah.
And they showed them all different kinds of Instagram pictures. Some of them were those like classic thin ideal pictures,
Yeah, the ones we all know.
the ones. And then some pictures of like average bodies, but presented in a really like body positive way.
Yeah.
And then of course they had like some neutral pictures just to like mix things up, like landscapes and stuff.
Right, like a control group.
Yeah, exactly.
That's really interesting.
Okay.
They measured something called body image state in the women before and after they looked at the pictures.
So like how they felt about their bodies right at that moment.
Exactly. It's like a snapshot of how they felt about themselves.
Okay, so we've got all these women, we've got these different pictures, and we're seeing how the pictures make them feel. What did they find?
Well, as you might expect, seeing those thin, ideal images
Oh.
led to like a lower body image state.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Makes sense. It's that whole like comparison thing. Even if it's subconscious, you see these like often impossible bodies and you kind of measure yourself against them.
Yeah, you get that little voice in your head that's like, "Shh, not good enough."
Totally.
And like we know those pictures are like so heavily edited and filtered a lot of the time.
Yeah, doesn't even matter. And get this.
Yeah.
This effect was like the same across all the age groups.
Really?
It didn't matter if you were 18 or 60.
Wow.
Everyone felt worse after looking at those thin ideal pictures.
So no matter how old you are, those perfect Instagram feeds can still kind of mess with you.
Okay, so what about the average body pictures?
Yeah. The body positive ones.
What happened there?
Okay, so with the average body pictures, the body positive ones, there was a really interesting twist. Seeing those pictures actually made people feel better about their bodies.
Huh, interesting. So like everyone felt better after seeing them.
Well, not quite. It was mostly the women who said they had lower self-esteem who felt better.
Oh, that is interesting. Why would that be? Like, why wouldn't everyone feel better after seeing those pictures?
It seems like for women who are already like struggling with body image, seeing those average bodies being celebrated, it's like a totally different message than the thin ideal,
Yeah,
Instead of comparing themselves to something that's like impossible to achieve,
right.
they're seeing bodies that look more like theirs,
Mm.
a wider range of sizes and shapes and all that.
So it's almost like they feel less alone or something.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And it can lead to something called downward comparison. Downward comparison, what's that?
So basically, social comparison theory says we naturally compare ourselves to other people.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And when we see someone who we think is like better than us, it can make us feel bad.
Yeah, I hate that.
But with downward comparison, we're comparing ourselves to someone who we think is like less fortunate or whatever.
Oh, okay.
And in a healthy way, that can actually make us feel better about ourselves.
So it's like shifting your perspective. Instead of focusing on like what you don't have, you're looking at what you do have.
Exactly.
Right.
And in this case, it seems like seeing those body positive pictures of average women, it helped the women with lower self-esteem kind of change how they were comparing themselves.
Yeah, and feel better about their own bodies.
Exactly.
It really makes you think about like the power of representation, doesn't it? Like seeing yourself in the media you consume it can really make a difference.
Huge difference, especially for people who haven't always seen themselves represented,
Yeah. So does this mean that like the body positivity movement, all the BOPO hashtags and stuff,
Oh,
is that stuff actually working?
I think so. It's about like expanding what we think of as beautiful, showing all different kinds of bodies and celebrating them.
Right.
And the study shows that it's having a positive impact, at least on some people.
This is really interesting, but I think it's important to remember that this study was just looking at people's immediate reactions.
Right.
It doesn't really tell us about the long-term effects of social media on body image.
You're right. We need more research to really understand all the nuances,
Hmm.
but it definitely gives us something to think about.
So knowing that everyone is kind of vulnerable to those thin ideal images,
Yeah.
but self-esteem is really important and how we deal with them.
Yeah.
What can we do to like have a healthier relationship with social media and body image?
Mm.
It's so easy to get sucked into comparing yourself to other people.
Oh, it is. And even though this study was about Instagram, I think it applies to like any platform where it's mostly pictures and videos, you know?
Yeah, totally.
So before we talk about what we can do,
Yeah.
I think we need to take a step back and ask, like, why is the thin ideal so powerful in the first place?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
Why are we constantly seeing these images? Like, where did it come from? And why is it so hard to get away from it? It feels like it's always been there,
Hmm.
you know? Like this idea of the thin ideal is just so normal that we don't even question it.
Yeah, it really does feel that way, doesn't it? Like it's just baked into our culture.
Yeah.
And it comes from like everywhere. The media, advertising what we think is normal, even historical ideas of beauty. It's a lot to unpack.
So where do we even start? It feels kind of overwhelming to think about changing something that's so ingrained in like everything.
Yeah, it's a big job, but I think the first step is just being aware of it.
Yeah.
Like realizing that these ideals aren't like actual facts. They're just ideas that people have made up and spread around.
Hmm.
And this study actually brings up another really interesting point that people don't talk about much.
Okay, I'm listening.
What is it? So the study put the pictures into two categories, right? Thin ideal and average. But those categories are kind of subjective. You know what I mean?
Oh, totally. What one person thinks is thin ideal, someone else might think is totally normal or even like something they want to look like.
Exactly. So it makes you wonder, how much does our own idea of what those categories mean affect how we react to pictures on social media?
Whoa, that's a good point.
Hmm.
So it's not just about the pictures themselves. It's also about how we're looking at them.
Right. Like our own internal beauty standards or whatever.
Yeah. It's like another layer on top of everything.
It is. It means that social media doesn't affect everyone the same way when it comes to body image.
Right.
It depends on your own experiences and what you believe and how you see yourself.
So two people could look at the exact same picture on Instagram and have totally different reactions because of their own like personal stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. It's why it's so important to be really careful about what you're seeing online and what messages you're taking in.
And to ask yourself if those messages are like actually what you believe or if they're just what someone else is trying to make you believe. So going back to what we were talking about before, about how to have a healthier relationship with social media and body image, it sounds like knowing yourself is a really big part of it.
It's huge. You have to know what makes you feel bad and try to avoid those things. And remember that those perfect Instagram feeds aren't real life.
Yeah, it's like everyone has flaws, even those influencers who seem perfect.
Totally. And comparing yourself to other people is like a recipe for unhappiness.
Ugh, it's the worst.
What if we focused on celebrating what makes us unique instead? Like our own beauty and our strengths and all the things that make us who we are.
Yeah. Beauty isn't just about how you look. It's about being kind and smart and funny and passionate about things.
Right. And it's about remembering that you're worthy just for being you, not for how many likes you get or what people comment on your pictures.
Okay, so to wrap up this deep dive into social media and body image, we've talked about a lot.
We have.
The thin ideal, the power of body positivity, how important self-esteem is, and being aware of your own thoughts and feelings. It's complicated.
It really is.
But we want to leave you with one last thing to think about. Knowing that how you see things affects how social media makes you feel. How can you start being more aware of that? What little changes can you make to make your online experience more positive?
That's a great question to think about. And remember, everyone, you're so much more than just a body, and your worth is not defined by what you see on social media. Thanks for joining us.
Stay curious, keep exploring, and join us next time for more groundbreaking research brought straight to your ears. Don't forget to subscribe and share, because science is meant to be heard.